Welcome to Opinion Journal Live. I'm Mary Kissel. Republican governors are facing a torrent of criticism for their refusal to set up health care exchanges under the Affordable Care Act, also known as ObamaCare. But is the criticism warranted? Here to discuss is editorial board member Joe Rago. Joe, for viewers out there who aren't familiar with these exchanges, what are they meant to do?
Well, look, it's sort of a good idea that's been distorted in practice, but what the exchange will do is it's where the uninsured will sign up for subsidized coverage. It's a new regulatory body that will come in and control state markets for individual and small business health insurance. And what the Affordable Care Act did was it said, states, you should set these up, and if you don't, the federal government, the Department of Health and Human Services, will sort of swoop in and run it for you. So it's led, right now you've got 16 states who are saying, we don't want any part of this. 17 states who've said, we'll do this. There are still 11 outstanding states that might do it, they might not. And then there's a few states, 6 states, who want help from the federal government. They'll run part of it, and the federal government will partner with them on the rest.
Okay, Joe, when I hear the word exchange, and I guess private insurance companies are going to come in and so-called compete on these exchanges, that sounds like a good thing from a market perspective. Why do these governors not want to do this? Right.
Well, they want flexibility to design the architecture of the exchanges themselves. They sort of, and what HHS is saying is, we're going to call it a state-run exchange, but it's not really going to be state-run. It's actually going to be run out of Baltimore, which is where most of HHS is located. So the governors are saying, well, we're going to get the blame for anything that goes wrong. We're going to be on the hook for all the costs.
What costs? What could go wrong?
Well, it's a massive logistical and operational undertaking to set up these things. You know, it's a huge, it requires huge investments in information technology, for instance. When somebody goes to the exchange, which is online, by phone, through a call center, for instance, even by fax, they'll have to ping the federal government to decide who's eligible for subsidies, which plans they're eligible for, and so forth. I mean, a lot of these states are still running Medicaid, for example, on using paper forms and pneumatic tubes. I mean, they're just not, they're not equipped to set these things up. And the reason that they're getting they're under intense pressure from Washington, from the media class, from the providers back home, and the reason they don't have any control, so they're throwing up their hands.
Joe, a supporter of Obamacare might say, well, this is forcing states to get better IT infrastructure, et cetera. So why is this a bad thing?
Well, it's
because they can't physically do it?
Right. They don't want to do it. They don't want any part of it. And the reason, I lost my train of thought earlier, the reason they're getting so criticized is because the federal government is not really prepared to do this job earlier. I mean, looking at the numbers, they may be running exchanges in full or in part. In as many as 30 states, 25 states. They're not really prepared either, so they're looking for a scapegoat. That's why they're going after these governors.
And names of governors who are resisting very quickly, 2 or 3?
Well,
Rick Scott, Florida?
Rick Scott has turned around under pressure from the provider lobby.